Hey, it's Stephanie with the Ranchers Homestead. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking all things cast iron. This has been a long awaited video. Everyone, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe longer. I asked on Instagram, do you guys want to see a video on how I care for my cast iron? And it was a huge yes. So I know this is a video that lots of people want, are curious about cast iron. You probably see the buzz around it. One thing to remember about cast iron is if it's properly cared for, it is non-stick. And so I think that's what everyone wants to know. How do you get a big heavy-duty cast iron pan to be non-stick? Well, today I'm going to show you that. Okay, so the first thing, two things to know about cast iron. One of them is, or why I like cast iron, is because they're easy to cook with. So you can cook with them on the stovetop, take the pan right into the oven, go back and forth. I love that about cast iron. I make chicken pot pies in my cast iron. I make pizzas in my cast iron. You can make so many things because they can go in the oven. That's so great. The other thing, and probably the most important reason why I cook with cast iron and what I have turned to cast iron and that I love the most, is that they're timeless. You will have them forever if you properly care for them. Your kids can use them. Your grandkids could use them. I mean, they can go on and on and on. And you can find really good quality cast iron pans at antique stores in different places because they don't go bad. And even if you find one that is not that great, you can strip it and re-season it and get it to be great. And so I love that. I actually have one that I found here at an antique store around me, and this is a Wagner. This is an older brand. So right now, you will find, likely if you were to search on Amazon, Target, Walmart, any of those places to find one, you're going to find the brand Lodge. And I have two of those. I have two Lodges, and they are just fine. They are a lot more heavy than the older version, and that's just the way that they were made, I guess. And I don't know the exact history behind it, but the way cast iron used to be made apparently is not safe, and so for the people making them, and so they changed it. So the new versions of cast iron, the Lodge brand, is a lot heavier. But I found this at an antique store. I re-seasoned it here at home. It was in great quality shape, and I use it all the time. So you can find them for fairly inexpensive and get a really good pan that you'll have for the rest of your life. So those are the two reasons why I like cast iron. They're the only things I use in my home now, and I love it. But you need to know how to properly care for them. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we season our pan once we get one. So they will come pre-seasoned when you buy a Lodge brand. So if you buy one at Target or at Walmart or any of those places, they're going to come already pre-seasoned. But within the year or year and a half, I do like to do another re-season. If things start to stick, then you know it's time. It needs some more buildup. When you're washing your pans, you don't want to use anything really scratchy on it because you don't want to take off that seasoning. But it happens over time, and so you'll want to get a new season on it. So what we're going to do first is how I re-season a pan every single year. So this pan actually is not too bad. I'm going to take this pan. It needs a good seasoning. So this is my Lodge big cast iron that I love, and we're going to re-season it for use. So I'm going to turn my oven on to 350 and hit start and get that preheated. Then you're going to get some kind of cooking oil. So you can use, I'm going to use coconut oil here. You can use some lard. You can use a little bit of olive oil if you'd like. I like to use coconut oil. You don't need very much. So that's one thing to remember, is you don't want your pan dripping in oil when you're seasoning it. So I'm just going to take a little bit here with a paper towel, or a rag if you don't use paper towels, and rub it all over my pan. I'm going to rub it up the sides, all over. Because I do like to make things in it, like chicken pot pies and stuff, that I want my sides to be non-stick as well. So I'm going to go all around it. Now, what you do need to know is that you really don't want very much oil. You want it to be very little bit. It should not be dripping in oil. Rub any excess oil off of it. And you're going to get it all rubbed. Okay, so now it's ready to go into the oven. My oven is preheated at 350. I'm going to go ahead and stick it right on in, upside down, on the top shelf. And then I'm going to stick a little piece of foil right underneath it on the bottom shelf. So it's not underneath the actual pan, it's underneath the shelf that the pan is on. And this is just in case any oils drip or anything like that. It actually gets it, catches it on the foil for easy cleanup. And then I'm going to shut my oven. I'm going to set my timer for 1 hour. This is going to go in here for 1 hour. Once it goes off, the timer goes off, I'm just going to turn my oven off, let it cool down completely inside the oven very, very slowly. Okay, so while our pan is in there getting seasoned, I have this pan here from Eggs This Morning. And now I'm going to show you what you do after you use it. So I saved this just for the video. So what you're going to want to do is, there's 3 things to remember when you're caring for your cast iron or you're cleaning it. And there's 3 things you don't want to do. One thing is you don't want to soak your cast iron. So if things are sticking to it, it's not properly seasoned, you need to go back to square one and get it properly seasoned. If it's sticking to it, to get the food off, I go ahead and put just a little bit of water in it, heat it back up to a boil, and then use a spatula and scrape the food off when it's hot and boiling. It'll come right off when you do that. So you don't want to soak them. You don't want to let them air dry. So you're not going to wash them. You're not going to set them on air dry. You don't want to use soap. So they don't need soap, actually. And then the final thing is I know that there's some controversy on there. There's no need, and actually you're going to break your seasoning down faster if you use like steel wool or anything rough to try and scrub the food off. If your food is sticking, then do the trick of putting a little bit of water in it, sticking it on the stove, letting it boil, and then scraping it off very easily with a spatula. And then you need to season it because it shouldn't be sticking like that. But using steel wool or anything on it is going to rip off all of your layers of seasoning that you have worked up to make them non-stick. So you don't want to use those kinds of things on your pan. One thing I forgot to mention on the pan that's in the oven being seasoned right now is that if it comes out and you feel like you need another round, you can do it again. You can build up that seasoning level. So if it's a pan that really looks stripped and it doesn't have very much seasoning on it, do it a couple different times. It'll take longer, obviously, an hour each time, but you'll build up that seasoning level on it and it'll be really... First thing you're going to do is you are going to come on over to your sink and wash your pan with a soft cloth, or just like I'm okay using these little kitchen scrubbers, but they're not super tough and gritty on my pans. I'm going to go ahead and get my pan a good wash with water only, and then we'll move on to... Okay, so then my pan is dried. I'm just going to take a towel and I just kind of wipe it down. And then I stick it on my stove and turn my stove back on. Now this is going to heat your cast iron up from the bottom all the way through and dry it completely. So you know how I said you don't want to air dry your pans? That is because you don't want them to rust. If they rust, then they're obviously not going to be non-stick anymore. And so you want to have them thoroughly dried after you wash them. And then I'm going to take a little bit of olive oil or avocado oil. I usually use avocado oil because that's the main oil I use in my house. And I just put a little dab on it and I rub it down while it's still heating up on the stove. So your pan will get nice and warm, hot almost. Rub it down with that. and then I just churn my stovetop off. Okay, so my pan is nice and warm. All of the water spots, everything is completely dry. I just put a little bit of oil. This is avocado oil on a paper towel or any kind of a towel. And I just rub the whole thing down. My stovetop is still on, but it's not like burning my hands. It's all okay. And I do the tops, I do the sides, I do the bottom. Again, you don't want it to be dripping with oil. I just put it all over, rub any excess oil off, let it heat for just another minute or so, and then I go ahead and turn off my stovetop, let it sit here and just cool down completely. I have an electric stovetop, so you know the heating element isn't on and off instantly. So it's going to stay warm and it's going to naturally come down slowly. If you have a gas top stove, that's okay. I wish I had a gas top stove. You're just going to turn it off, let it sit there for a few minutes, and then I go ahead and hang it right back up on my wall. So that's how I care for it after each use. So we'll just go through the steps real quick. I wash them with water only and a soft scrub. Then I put them onto my stovetop. I do pat dry with the towel. Put them on my stovetop, turn it on to medium, and let it completely get dry from the inside out. Then I rub it down with a little bit of olive oil or a little bit of avocado oil, and then I turn my stovetop off and let it come down to a cool, to let the pan cool completely on its own naturally. And that's how I care for them after each use. And then they become non-stick after that. When your pan is done being seasoned under here, you are ready to go. So as soon as your timer goes off from your hour, you're going to go ahead and turn your oven off. Let it come down completely on its own until it's cool to the touch, and then I pull it out and hang it up and you're ready to go. I'll look at it. Knowing that I do it regularly, every single year, you likely only need to do it once, but if you buy a really old pan, then you might want to build that seasoning up. Or if you have been using cast iron, but you've been using like steel wool or something to clean it, and you can tell that your pan, you're like, my pan never is non-stick. You might need more than one round of the big seasoning in your oven, and just to build up those layers so that it is non-stick. So that is how I care for my cast iron. I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that it turns people on that cast iron's not that scary, and they're really, really fun to cook with, actually. I love it. And we will see you next time. Take care.